Hey, folks. Welcome to the pre-show. Let's skip that for now. And go here. Boom. Get ourselves going over at the radio station. Boom, 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 boom. How's everybody this evening? Hope you're doing well. Look at this. We are in the new studio. Now, the wall back there might look the same as the wall that was out there, but this is freshly painted. It's concrete. This is the back wall to the office. And if you didn't catch the little quick video we did the other day, let's see what time we got. We got 2 minutes till we're on live. While this is not a wide angle lens by any means, I'll just show you really quick. Starting to put the studio together. There's going to be by the way, Dave Potter and I are going to a big mural on this wall. And let's see. I'm going to spin this around just a little bit to give you just a little idea. There's the studio. And I'm just moving in blank bookshelves. And we'll start loading up books as soon as we finish all the walls and everything we're doing on here. So there you go. That's what it's looking like so far. We still have one wall left to paint. That one. It's just sheetrock over there. And so we've got that one left to paint. We're going to tape that one up a little bit. And so there it is. All of those of you in the pre-show got the preview of the studio. Here, let me get my other stuff going on. Let's see. I got to throw this up. Boom. There we are. And get the banner going, rolling down below. And I think we're ready. Leslie, welcome to the show. Thank you for everything you do for this show and for me and my family. I really appreciate what you did today. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'll talk about this just a little bit at the intro to the show when we go live. And just let you know some things. So we're going to go dark. Stand by. We'll be right back.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the program tonight. Happy Monday evening. Not a usual thing you hear about Mondays, happy and all of that. So welcome to the show. This is the first night we're broadcasting from the new studio. It's not perfectly all set up yet, but we're getting there. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And if you are listening to this show, you're listening on Odyssey Radio. That's ODYSY radio.com. And folks, if you want to hear this show just in its audio format, put it in the background. You can go ahead and tune into Odyssey Radio. You can also hear a rebroadcast of this show tomorrow. And you got to go over there and check their schedule. I think they moved the times around a little bit. And also, if you're just listening audibly, you can come over and watch the simulcast of this show in video 3 different ways over on Facebook and over on my YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And of course, I'm your host of this, the Intrepid radio program. And by the way, if you go over to my YouTube channel, hit the like button. All that does, that's algorithms over there. That helps them know who's listening and who is participating in the show. That helps my numbers over there, which is an important thing, believe it or not. And also subscribe if you're not subscribed. And if you'd like to go a step further and join the channel, you can do that. Hit the little join button. It's down below the window here somewhere if you're watching. And it'll show you 3 ways that you can become a member of the channel. And thank you all. And welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all. Let's see. Who have we all got in here tonight? I just have to say, I've got some people in here I haven't seen for a while. Carl Mulak is here. Good old friend of mine. Barbie D is here. Daniel Craig is here. And yes, James Bond, but he really lives over on the East Coast. And Sarah Yusuf is here. Grumpy Stack, Leslie Holker, Steve Clark. Who all else is here? Matthew Sainsbury from Barbados. Angela Thomas. Very nice to see you this evening. Glad to have you here. And Daniel Ondra, Chief Elder Remeldian Olympus. That's quite a title you have tonight, Remeldian. Good to see you. And Matt Finn, Master Finn, is here. Master and commander of this here chat room. And David Potter, Uncle Dave to you all. And who else we got? Anybody else that I didn't say hi to? If I missed you, Steve Clark. I didn't see you there at first. Good to see you, brother. And many others. So everybody, if you're showing you, Professor Bauer is here. Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Is that really Professor Bauer? Haven't seen you for a while, brother. Good to have you here. And maybe he'll join us for a little bit in the after show tonight. For those of you who don't know, right as this show signs off at about 4 minutes to till the top of the hour, then we go immediately into the captain's cabin, which is our after show. So stick around. It'll be good to have you. Now, I was going to say about this room, if any of you live in this country like I do and are suffering a bit of economic, what's a good word for it? Malaise, illness, hangover. Well, not hangover because we're still in the midst of the drunk. But if you're suffering from economic crisis in this country, like we are, money's tight, and money's tight all the way around. And we're probably, I want to say, and I don't say this with glee, I was just telling somebody this afternoon, Rainey and I feel like we are poorer now than we ever have been in the 18 years we've known each other and been together. And so now we're not impoverished, but how many of you are maybe a month or 2 months away from being impoverished? Of if you lost your income, if you lost your job, How far away are you from not being able to pay your bills? Now, I'm not going to get political with this. That's not where I'm going. I'm just saying that I work for myself. So if I don't have a good month, guess what? It hits us right in the butt. And so all of that to say this, you all know by things we've said in the past, it's been a slow quarter for us. And it's been really rough, and jobs coming have been rough. And so I've been posting pictures on this design that Dave and I have been doing down here in this studio. And people look at that and they go, wow, that's fantastic. It looks brilliant. Well, I got to tell you something. It's kind of like a movie set. You know, what did they say about the original Enterprise on Star Trek in the 60s? It was built out of balsa wood and plastic and paint. And that's basically what we've done here. So Dave and I and Rainey and I, we went out to the Environmental Reclamation Center where they take in old paints and old household chemicals and products that are used. And we went there where Dave and I, when we do murals, we traditionally for years have gone there to get all our colors to do murals and things like that. And I was looking for floor paint. We found floor paint there for the concrete floor. We found the wall paints. We're not doing much with the walls other than painting and colors on the concrete. I painted the ceiling above. You can't really see that. I sprayed it all flat black. But all this to say this. And by the way, we also went to the thrift store and found paint rollers and brushes. So we didn't have to pay $100 just to have brushes and rollers. We paid out of our pockets, maybe less than $10 to get everything that we're doing this whole basement with. This room and the master bedroom, which is over there, and the main family room for the kids, which is over there and going to be Rainey's office as well. So I'm saying that to say you don't have to be rich. You can be a little bit behind. You may not have all the money coming in that you want, but you can do what you want to do. And you work toward it and you make something look good. If you work at finding the right deals and things that you can do and you do your work, you can do some nice stuff. And so if you haven't seen it, go over to my Facebook. You'll see some of the pictures I put up of this room. And we got more rooms to do. So Daniel Craig says, so want to do a steampunk renovation on a 48-foot motorhome? Absolutely. We can do that. As a matter of fact, I wanted to down here do some things like Frodo Baggins' house from Lord of the Rings, from the movies, doing things with theatrical foam and wood that you could, not expensive. You can carve this stuff out. You can make it look like wood. You paint it and you do some really spectacular looking stuff with it. It's like Dave and I did Rainey's in my old basement way back in 2006. I had a basement in a typical Rambler Ranch style house in St. Paul. And it had old plywood on it, icky plywood from the 70s. And so we took that room, and rather than strip out the plywood and do anything new, I took a little plaster. We plastered over all the seams that were running in the plywood. Then we painted it to look like old plaster, like it had been aged. We took beams that I got from a friend of mine whose dad worked at a lumberyard or something. These 8x8, 6x6 or 8x8 beams. We put them up around the room, and then diagonals and across the ceiling. And there was an old bar down there that had faux stonework on it that looked like crap. And so we painted it, faux painted it to look like, or trompe l'oeil, as they say, to make something look real that's painted. And we converted that whole basement into what looked like a 16th century Tudor pub. And so that's the kind of stuff we do. And so, yes, Daniel Craig, Uncle Dave and I can do that for you. We pick up most of our paint at the recycling center. There's several of them around the state. And I think every state has them. And all around the Twin Cities, there's a few of them as well. And Daniel, you should talk to Uncle Dave. He converted his own motor coach, camper, motorhome, RV. So Leslie Hooker said she did that too. I prepped our plywood and painted it with several coats by brush and went from a dungeon to a sunroom. Isn't that cool when you can do that? Hey, Morgan Snow, welcome. And anybody else I missed? It's not, I didn't miss you because I omitted you. It's because I just haven't seen you yet, and we're already in the show. So I'm going to leave that at that. These rooms are starting to take shape. Dave also has some old canister lights, canned lights, like you see in the old theaters, the lights, and they've got the little doors on them with some gel and stuff. We're going to hang a bunch of those in here and do some nice lighting. And you can barely see up over here, where is it? Over there, some blue, because I have a blue small canister light up there reflecting some light down. And so we're going to do some fun stuff like that in here and make this studio rocking. And it's not soundproofed or anything. I don't know if you pick up as much of the echo as I hear while I'm talking. But here it is, folks. There it is. We've been talking about it for a long time. So welcome to the first show being done in the studio, which is not finished yet, but will be soon enough. And tonight, I want to get into something that is near and dear to my heart, and hopefully something that you enjoy as well. And we're probably going to be on this for a little bit, is Celtic mythology. We're going to go through this a couple, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 18 nights, whatever it takes. And, let me make one announcement too. This Friday, remember, Intrepid Radio, Fridays are ghost days. We have Mark Coltrus, and he is calling in from England. He's going to call in at 3 a.m. to be here. And he's somebody that develops his own ghost box, spirit boxes, and is, I think, really an interesting, very knowledgeable man on all of this stuff. So he's going to be a very interesting person to talk to. And so you won't want to miss this on Friday. He's going to stay for the show. And since he's going to be up late, or maybe even early for him, I don't know which, we might be able to keep him over for the captain's cabin as well. And you'll be able to ask a lot of questions of him. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Celtic mythology. Now, I chose this mostly because, well, I'm a Celtic mutt. I'm Scottish. I'm Welsh. But then there's some British in there. Don't have much French in me, but there's other things in there. There is Scandinavian in there, which I never knew I had until we did some DNA. And of course, DNA tests these new places. And so, it's not so new. Ancestry.com, 23andMe, some of these where you get your DNA done. All of that is just fascinating. And I was tracing my father's line, the paternal line, the Roberts name. And you all know, who are regular listeners, that I ended up with finding out many things about my past. I traced this back into the early 1400s in London, England, and my forebears who came over from Wales in 1710 and settled in Virginia. And this is all the same family tree, different spellings of the name along the way. And so we looked at that, and then Rainey said, she did some research and said, well, the mother's line is going to carry a lot of your DNA and bloodline. So I pursued the mother's line as well. And I'm getting the Germanic in there. I'm getting the French Canadian in there, which is Native American. I'm getting the Scandinavian. And we're thinking the Scandinavian probably had a lot to do with raiding Vikings on the Welsh and the Irish and the Scottish. But one thing I found out is I'm a Celtic mutt, which I say rather tongue-in-cheek. I don't mind that at all. And in researching, I've been drawn to Celtic mythology for many years. And I enjoy Celtic mythology, and I enjoy Celtic history. And so we're going to look at that now for a few days and kind of dig into this. I've been floating around a bit without a set topic for this show. I like to get into these mini series in the show because it gives us more meat, and we can spread it out and we can talk about it for days. Like I bring up quite often, we did when we talked about Native America and the conquering of the American West by the United States. We went for 7 weeks on that topic. We talked for a few weeks on, I hear children screaming. I don't know if you can hear that. We're not soundproofed very well down here yet. They're upstairs. They just got home from scouts and they're making noise. So talked about Christianity, ancient Christianity. Some of the other topics we talk about, I like to spend some time on them. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. We've never finished that. We'll come back to that at some time in the future. We did several shows on that, just reading through his meditations. So I like getting into these series because it gives us a little meat to bite into. By the way, if you do hear that, that is my screaming 7-year-old child who is sometimes very sweet and many times insisting that her way is the only way, and does the, how do I say spoiled brat delicately? I guess you don't. She plays that role sometimes, and we're still trying to break her. We must break her. So anyway, if you're hearing that screaming, that's where that's coming from. So going into Celtic mythology, well, hi. Well, there's Bob Saget. So Bob Saget just jumped up on my lap and, of course, used his claws to maintain his position there as he was crawling up. Hi, Bob Saget. Say hi. What you doing? That's the new kitty that the kids brought home. And so there he is, Bob Saget. They want to call him something else, Bing Bong. I said, the only way you were allowed to keep a cat, a new cat, because we've already got one, I said, is if he's named Bob Saget. One word, Bob Saget. And no, we don't want to call him that. And then no cat. Okay, we'll call him Bob Saget. What's the first thing they did after Bob Saget came home? They wanted to rename him. Now that he's here. So, Celtic mythology. That's where we're going to be here right now. And if you do any kind of study of Greco-Roman antiquity, of that period of Celtic history, of Greco-Roman history at all, you stumble upon Julius Caesar and the Golic Wars. And I've talked about the Golic Wars. As a matter of fact, the last book I did, The Sword and the Clay, the illustrated book, takes place in the Golic Wars, part of that book. And his encounters with the Celtic people of Gaul. I had a book here that I was going to pull out and show you as one that I thought I had lost for a while. I didn't put it up there. But I have old book that's over 100 years old of Caesar's Golic Wars and his mentions of the Celts and how he described them. And over the course of the 9 years of the Golic Wars, Caesar documented everything that he could about the Celtic culture and the beliefs of those people. And while doing so, he began to draw connections between the German and the Celtic gods to those that were followed in Rome. He found that these are very similar across the board, only different names and different details. And these wars were decisive to the Romans in securing victory over the many Golic tribes in what is today France, and some of the Germanic tribes and so on. And despite the victories and the colonization of these areas, the Celtic culture continued to thrive in in current countries, the United Kingdom and Ireland. And suffice it to say, the use of syncretism, or the overlap of beliefs and practices all across these nations, this is what piqued my interest in the Celtic peoples and the origins of their surviving culture. And it piqued my interest in studying more about their mythologies and their histories, not just my own bloodlines, but starting to understand and look into the history. And the modern day British Isles stand as a kind of a representation of the mix of cultures that swept across Europe throughout the Iron Age and through the Middle Ages. and polytheistic, monotheistic societies. All these religions were combined and they were reinterpreted, resulting in this unique and blended cultures. And it's really very interesting when you start getting into seeing what these were all about. And hang on a second here while I do this. I've got notes up here, if you haven't figured that out yet. So I've got to make this work the way I want it to work so I don't lose my place in my own notes. There's something you don't hear all the time when listening to a radio show. Yeah, you think we all do this off the top of our heads? Not all the time. I got to refer to my notes. And so to this day, the Celts are famed for their deeply intricate art styles, their unique burial practices, and the ever-popular description of the red-headed braves throughout popular media. Speaking of braves, if you've ever seen the Disney animated film Brave, which takes place in Scotland, it's really a picturesque animated film. You'll want to look at that. Another good one is The Secret of the Kells. If you have not seen that, an impressive animated movie. The Secret of the Kells. And also the, what was the other one? The Song of the Sea is an animated film made by the same people who did The Secret of the Kells. And it's a wonderful, wonderful. Leslie, if you haven't seen these, anybody with kids or grandkids, look up The Song of the Sea. I don't know if it's The Song or just Song of the Sea. It's animated, and it's about I was trying to think of the Gaelic word for it, the she, but the mermaids, although the movie's not about mermaids. But it's about the she. Why can't I think? The Selkies is one of the words I was looking for. It takes place on a little lighthouse, on a little island of the lighthouse in Ireland. Really, really good movie. So look those up. I can't remember who makes them, but Song of the Sea and Secret of the Kells, Kells. Check those out. But to this day, the Celts are famed for their art styles, their burial practices, the red-headed braves throughout popular media. The Celtic culture stands among other cultural and historical giants such as the Romans, the Greeks, the Germanic peoples. Last week, we talked about the Tuatha De Danann, as they came to be known, the tall, elegant, blonde, glowing, glimmering people from the heavens, kings from the heavens. Now, they may have just been the Fir Bolg, the people of the north that came down in. They could also be the things of real legend. It says they receded into the hollow hills and became known as the elven folk. Get a picture of Tolkien's elves as you read about them in the books and see them in the older movies that were made, the Lord of the Rings movies. You'll get an idea. But these peoples, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Great Britain, continue to hold on to these remains of this glorious ancient history of these Celts. Historic castles and forts mark the skyline of the Isles, as do oral traditions of the histories and folk tales, mythical creatures, heroic figures, all told in their mother languages or closest modern variants. And ancient Celtic culture continues to this day to bear influence over modern cultures and media. Many of the legends, the beasts, the heroes, find themselves repeatedly retold or reimagined. Of course, this isn't exclusive to Celtic tradition, we know. We've seen the same with Norse, with Greek, with Roman, many other polytheistic cultures. So what keeps us returning to these roots? It's kind of the question I want to look at now. Why do we need to uncover this? Why do we keep going there? There's mythological significance. And mythology has always played a major role in cultures around the world through every era in history. Pick up a book by Joseph Campbell, the late Joseph Campbell, on a mythological book, for Pete's sake, the 10,000 now I can't think of the name of the book. The Thousand Faces, Hero in a Thousand Faces, or something like that. I can't remember the title off the top of my head for some reason right now. Usually sits right there on my shelf, and I'd point it out to you, but it's still in a box. The Hero with a Thousand Faces, I think he's called it. It's all on mythology and the importance of mythology. And now, while we know in modern days how volcanoes work, how weather systems impact a variety of crops and natural cycles, in ancient times, mythology provided comfort and significance to these unknown patterns. This etiology, explaining to in ancient times, within the context of those ancient times, saying, why is there thunder in the sky? Well, it's the thunder god, and let me tell you about him. And they'd make up these etiological stories to give us something to go with. Rat Rex, thank you very much. Oh, I know who that is. I won't say your real name in case you don't want it known. Good to see you here tonight. All of these things, this etiology that were taught to ancient peoples in their context. Remember, you didn't have a 21st century person back then describing things. You had an ancient person describing to ancient people in their context. It's like looking at the Bible. If you want to interpret the Bible correctly, you've got to interpret it through the eyes of those who lived during those times, what they would have understood as they wrote it, what their listeners would have understood in reading it or hearing it. It's totally different context than we have today. So looking at crops and natural cycles, etiology, these things in mythology provided comfort and significance to all these unknown patterns that people did not understand. Being able to give hardship and success deeper meaning helped to shape cultures and traditions. And mythology gave the human race a way to process life, to process death, explain natural phenomena, as well as give meaning to tragedies such as the spread of illness through the tribes, famine, and just about any emotional or mental distress that affected people. So in turning to mythology, we make sense of the deepest of tragedies, and we find joy in the most overwhelming of conditions and the most overwhelming of emotions. And so when you look into the pantheons of polytheistic mythology, you can not but see that the deities of worship were never made to be perfect, idyllic beings, but were truly made as humans are. They were flawed, but they were capable of overcoming the greatest adversity. I'm going to recommend a book only because I picked it up on Audible. I had 3 free points on Audible last week, and I thought, well, let me see what they've got. And so I picked up 3 Audible books, and I got 2 of them were books written by Stephen Frye. Are you familiar with Stephen Frye? He's a British actor. He's also a British speaker, an intellectual, an author. He's fairly famous for being an atheist and a skeptic, but he's also an intellectual on top of it. He doesn't just come at his points of view because I just don't want to believe that and want to believe something else. Well, I picked up a couple of his books on mythology, and he's got a trilogy that's out there. And the first book was on mythology, ancient Greek mythology particularly. And so I picked that up because I wanted to hear what he had to say about it. And he's really retelling the whole story of the ancient mythological gods in their context, not describing them in an academic way. He's rewritten their story as a story. And he's reading the book, so it's even more fun listening to him doing that. I can't think of the name of the book off the top of my head, and I'll get that for you. Maybe in the captain's cabin, I can give you the title of that book. But look up Stephen Frye and mythology, and you'll get and you'll see the books that he's got out there. And so, and by the way, if you get an Audible membership, you get these free points. I think I bought one book from them not long ago in audio, months ago, 4 months ago. That's what I mean by not long ago. And I've been able to pick up with points. I get points every month. It's okay, cool. Then I find out they're charging me $9 a month. So, there you go. So it's not free, but it's better than paying for a book sometimes. So mythology gave the human race a way to process life. And the gods that they presented us and the myths, these mythological characters, they were all flawed. And you look at, this is where there's a distinction between something you see in, say, biblical, and I put it in this context, mythology. It's the mythology of the Old Testament times, the mythology of the ancient Hebrews, the Jews, the Israelites, the mythology of Christianity. I put it in that same context as an academic way of describing it. But there's a big difference there. You don't see the flaws in the gods. Now, some might say, mythos, Stephen Frye, that's it, Carl Mulak, thank you. There it is, Uncle Dave Potter as well. Mythos, excellent trilogy of books. So at least if I'm to gauge the trilogy by the first one that I'm listening to. And I'm listening to it audibly. That's what was playing when you were over here the other day when you first came in, Dave. I went off on a little bit of a rabbit trail. I'm trying to think of where I left off with this. What I was going to say. Something I was going to say about the things I'm saying. Oh, I was talking about the Bible in its stark contrast, and it being presented as infallible, that the God is perfect and infallible. Yet, you will see glimmers in the old scriptures, especially the Old Testament, of not only the imperfections of the humans that are the mythological characters, so to speak, even if they were real history, but also sometimes of the God himself. There was one thing, and you'll get all kinds of explanations in theological circles for this, but one thing that was very notable to me that stood out when I was a younger man and I was in Bible college and seminary was the fact that God had to repent of something once, maybe more than once. Do you remember that scene? And it's been put into movies and all kinds of things. But after the Exodus, when Moses comes down, the people are worshiping the golden calf, and he breaks the tablets of the law and goes back up in the mountain in a huff. And what does God say to him? He says, Moses, I'm going to wipe these people out. I'm going to kill every last one of them. They're gone. They're dead to me. They're dead. Their husbands are dead. Their wives are dead. Their children are dead. Their grandfathers are dead. They're dead to me. Dead. It was an Al Capone moment for God. And what did Moses do? He said, God, you can't do that. And God's like, what? And Moses said, you can't do that because you gave your word that these are your children, your people, and so on and so on. And what does it say in that passage immediately after that? It says, and God repented of the evil he was going to do on Israel, on his children. And so God repented. And people will exegete that passage in any number of ways. But what did he do? He turned his back on what he was going to do. And it was a human being who convinced him to do that. So is that an infallible God or a God that has flaws? And if we're made in the image of God, if that is truth, are we not flawed as well? Anyway, let's move on from that. So when we study ancient mythology, we get a clearer view of what our ancestors lived through, the context of their lives, the context of their days. When you dig into anthropology and archaeology, it solidifies that even more. And We look at the ideals that they held to and held in high regard. We get to understand that when we look at mythology. And throughout the ages, deities rose and fell in popularity, depending on the requirements of the culture of the day. And when faced with adversity and war, it only made sense that gods of war would come into all sorts of higher worship. Oh, Ares, the god of war in Rome. Well, let's elevate him now because we're going to war. So when it came time to bless the sown seed, the gods of fertility received offerings throughout the tribes. When it comes to seeing what it was that the ancient peoples found value in, we need to look no further than the myths that were cherished by them and passed down through the generations in all their different incarnations to this very day. And so, free will flawed us, said Jeremy Hansen. Yeah, theologically speaking, it did. God has no flaws, says Jeremy Hansen. Maybe not. It all depends on your theology. I don't want to get you and we can discuss this on the radio show. Maybe we can have you come on one night, Jeremy, and we'll talk about that because I respect your opinion greatly. But I think you see a God in the Old Testament that sometimes doesn't look like a perfect God to me. He looks like somebody that was made in man's image because of some of the things he does in the Old Testament. We'll save that debate for another time in that topic, but cogitate that on that for a second. I look at Muslim extremists, Christian extremists. You don't hear about too many Jewish extremists, but I look at these extremists in Abrahamic religions, and they all seem to act in way God would wipe out entire cultures, entire villages, entire towns. Theologically, we were told, well, that's because of this reason, and this reason, which we'll get into later. But I think that this kind of solidifies a mythology that's kind of a paste that's put all over everything that was the real God of the times, the real context of the day. And so sometimes I think we get an erroneous view of who God might be when we look at scriptures and say, well, God committed genocide, right? Why is it wrong then? So you have to dig in. You have to understand context and so on. So there you go. Let's set that aside. I'm going to go off on that without Jeremy. We'll make a date on that one. So what about mythology in with extremism? It's cherry picking out of context, says Sarah Yusuf. I agree. So what about mythology in the present day? Remember, we're talking about Celtic mythology. We're just laying some groundwork here, living in a world where science meets fiction, where the phenomena that once perplexed our ancestors are easily explained by simply having a barometer. I had one in here once before in the old office, having a barometer by careful observation. It can be easy to wonder why we still turn to ancient mythology. We've got science now, right? This is why I think we've, as a culture, done away with God and gods, angels and devils and demons and ghosts and spirits and monsters and all of the things that are out there. We've done away with them all because we've got science now. Oh, look, I've got a barometer. I can tell you why the weather's the way it is. And I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek there, but we have observation. It can be easy to wonder why we still turn to these ancient mythologies. And after all, when we see the lightning streak across the sky, we know better than to think that's Thor actually racing across our sky in his chariot, right? We know better than that now. Or do we? We understand the way lightning is created within our clouds. We understand the science behind it. And released as vibrant energy, crackle. And so what purpose does mythology hold in our modern world anymore If we now have Apollo, says Sarah Yusuf, you can't move forward without understanding history. Spot on, Sarah. So, what purpose does mythology hold for us anymore in our modern world when we understand things better? At least, is that us? Book of Romans in the New Testament always said, I remember this verse from a long time ago, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Do we think we know everything right now? I think science gives us the impression that we can now know everything and anything. And many people are like, well, if I can't explain it by science, it doesn't exist. So in many ways, all this old mythology still holds the same significance for us as it did to our ancestors. When the Celts went to war, they turned to the Morrigan, calling for her to stand with them and guide them as the fiercest goddess on the battlefield. Today, when we know that we're about to go to battle, whether it's our internal demons or fighting with external issues and pressure, we rely on the tales of the Morrigan so that we can draw from her strength. We turn to these stories to learn from them and aim to better ourselves as we pursue our goals in the image of these gods. Now, maybe many of us in this culture in the United States don't think that way. You go over to Celtic cultures, you go to Ireland, and you're going to get some of that. A lot of that, as a matter of fact. Well, there is my young child. I am on radio, but welcome. What's on your mind? How about Scouts?
Okay.
Familial interlude. You can't stay because you're going to make noise. You're going to move. You're going to wiggle. You can't sit on my lap because you never sit still. But I'll come and see you when the show's over.
Wrestled at the end.
That's fantastic. There's no context for that, but she and her friend wrestled at the end of Scouts tonight. That's fantastic. All right, guess what? Look at me. Look at my eyes.
What?
You have to go upstairs. I love you.
All right.
Bye. Take your slushy with
One
you.
more thing. Business.
Quick. Business. I have no idea what that meant. But goodbye. There you go. Familial interlude. Yeah, monotheism seems to be a late idea. And frankly, and I've said it before, and Jeremy, maybe you and I can talk about this sometime too, maybe in the same context. I've said it seemed to me in all my studies that the Old Testament doesn't push monotheism the way we think it does. There's a lot of stuff between the cracks and in the languages. So that's for another time. Think about that. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from believing what you believe. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I seem to find. Somebody made a Star Trek reference. Steve Clark. Dave, I say because look at the communication devices from Star Trek and flip cell phones or the way they were checked in temperature of the patients and the way, and now. I agree. Yeah, there you go. Whatever you were talking about. If you're invoking Star Trek, you're right. So let us move on, shall we? So even today, we have modern day myths and legends. If you look into the near past, we have the stories of who? Paul Bunyan, especially up here in the north, Midwest North, Minnesota. It's all Paul Bunyan land up there. And his blue ox, Babe the blue ox. And in the present, we can see that these stories are at work within our media. One thing that, I listen to ads every day. Blue Ox Heating and Care, legendary service with legendary care. I hear it on the radio all the time. It drives me nuts. I'm so tired of that jingle for the last 8 years. But it's referring to Babe the Blue Ox and Paul Bunyan. You can see these stories at work. One thing that carries forward is the human desire to tell stories. That's what mythology is. I love to tell stories. I'm a storyteller. It's what I do. I write books. I illustrate pictures. I tell tales. I talk. I try to tell tales with my words. It's what we do. Instead of telling stories of Brigid, we tell or Bridget, if you will, of Ireland. We tell stories of Batman. I'm Batman. And Deadpool. We see ourselves in their greatness and in their downfalls. When I had my heart surgery almost 6 years ago, I said, kind of a joke, I said, I don't want you to think my hero status has slipped. I'm just Iron Man now. So, and I got the scar to show it. And so we see ourselves in the greatness and the downfalls of our heroes, even our current heroes, our comic book heroes. Instead of them being oral traditions, we instead have movies like Valkyrie and We Were Soldiers. We have movies like Saving Private Ryan, Braveheart, Rob Roy. These are movies that are built on our modern day mythologies of perhaps real life people. Well, many times of real life people. And these stories are based on true events. They're retold for education, for inspiration, for entertainment. And we look at the greatest beings of our lifetimes, and we tell their stories, creating modern legends out of the great men and women who led movements and fought to make our culture better. How many times have you seen a story about an historical character, maybe even in United States history, and there's a new movie out or a new book out that expands on that to fill in all the gaps so you can see the real people? Movies, there was just a Harriet Tubman movie that came out a year ago or 2 years ago to fill in those gaps. Joseph Smith is worshipped like a god down here in Missouri. He was a fantasy Marvel character, says Jeremy Hansen. Yeah, we see it all the time. So, in looking at the great tales of ancient Celtic mythology, we can understand the culture. And we can understand the way that these civilizations lived their lives in context. And in telling of these mythological giants and powers, we see more than just values of these old ancient peoples. What we see is what they aspired to be. Their mythologies tell us all, you and me, what they aspired to be. That's why mythology is important. We can view what they wanted as their true successes, their greatnesses, what they understood of the world. And we can see the state of their economies through what we know was being left as offerings, and what they feared based on the creatures that were created and their overall worldview. In today's world, these tales, these deities, these creatures continue to inspire us to create and to teach. And we're almost out of time on the radio station, so I got to wrap this up for you guys over on radio. But think about that for a minute. Think about the things that we hold dear and how it morphs over into our own current mythology. We don't think of the movies and books today as being our mythology, but that's what it is. More on this tomorrow. We're going to hit this up again. And I think you're going to really enjoy this series because I'm already enjoying it myself. So to all of you on the radio over at Odyssey Radio, thanks for being here. And you know what? Here's a bit of modern mythology for you. Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
Hey, welcome to the Captain's Cabin. Arr. It's the Captain's Cabin. For those of you who ain't been here before, this is where we let our hair down a wee bit. So thanks for sticking around. Probably not going to go super late tonight. We usually go an extra hour on top of it. I don't feel like doing another hour tonight. That's the beauty of the Captain's Cabin, too. Started as anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, and then from there, I'm here too, Matthew Sainsbury. Look at that. Woohoo. I think we're all here. And so I'm glad everybody stuck around. Depends on how deep we get into a topic. Tonight, I got other things going on, and so I want to get out of here a little earlier. So we'll just do an abbreviated Captain's Cabin tonight. Look at the circles under my eyes. I haven't slept in weeks. Who said that? What famous movie line is that? Anybody know? Very famous movie line. Every one of you sitting out there has probably seen that movie at least 20 times. And that movie's been around for about, believe it or not, almost 80 years, if not more. You think of look at the cycles under my eyes. I haven't slept in weeks. Who was that? Who said that? Anybody know? Might be a prize for you if you know. I don't know. Without looking it up. I think that your studio would look great if you do like your Captain's Cabin. But I love that kind of stuff. Me too. You know, Uncle Dave and I talked about doing some faux woodwork in here to make it look like something like that. Maybe, you know, the Hobbit house, Bag End from Lord of the Rings or something like that. That was one of the topics that even came up as a possible mural there. But you're really only seeing, you know, that much of the wall, which is not much. That goes, give you an idea of how big this wall is. There it is. That's what you got. That's what you're going to see in a mural. It's just that right there. So that's about 6 foot area by 6 foot, 4 foot, something like that. So Hobbit. So you never know where Captain, Chief Elder Remeldian, you never know where Captain's Cabin will take us. That's right, brother. I sometimes don't know. I'm sometimes 10 minutes before the show airs, and I don't know where we're going. So I had that conversation with Sarah Yusuf the other day. Yep, that's it, Sarah. You pegged it. The Cowardly Lion and the Wizard of Oz. Look at the circles under my eyes. I haven't slept in weeks. I used to have that whole movie memorized when I was a kid because I saw it all the time. So that movie still scares. Excuse me. See, that's why I got to do an abbreviated Captain's Cabin tonight. My 7-year-old and I think my 10-year-old even, and maybe even my son when he was little, they were all a little nervous about the Wizard of Oz when they were kids. It scared them even back then. Hey, Uncle Dave's icon.
Howdy, howdy.
How you doing?
Good.
Right on.
Ugh.
That all you
Good
got?
show. Good show. No, good show.
Well, thank you. Thank you. There are shows you do and you feel good about them. There are shows you do and you don't feel good about them at all when you're done. You're like, oh man, I got to go crawl under a rock somewhere because that was horrible.
We won't talk about the other night. We'll just kind of let that
really. Those of you, if this is your first time back here since Friday evening, the Captain's Cabin got a little boisterous, shall we say? And
it was more like the captain's brothel that night.
The captain's brothel. Well, which is what the Captain's Cabin really is all about once you break out the rum and the wine. But
and we was completely so. I think
there's Roger Rabbit.
I think the fumes had a lot to do with it.
The fumes, maybe. I don't blame outside influence. See, this is why
it was rainy. It was rainy. It was all raining.
It was raining. It was me wife. So that was isn't that what we always do? We always try to blame it on. This is why I don't like to drink to excess, even though I have done so in my past. And
I never toast excess. I always drink to other things.
That's right. Excess comes all on its own. So next time you're over, we'll have to try this. We'll have to try this piggyback, which has been sitting on Whistle Pig piggyback bourbon, which has been sitting on my desk. For a day. Because you just unpacked it. But I had it in the old house too, just sitting there waiting to be drunk. Roger Rabbit says, yeah, it was Rainey and Carly that made things get really out of hand on Friday.
Carly, yes, Carly.
Who's that? Definitely. Carly, that Carly chick. She's tired tonight, so no worries about getting X-rated tonight.
Totally wasn't us. We had nothing to do about it.
Yeah. Oh, you've never seen the whole Wizard of Oz to this very day, Roger?
Sure, I have.
Roger.
Oh.
So I'm not sure I ever fully watched it to this day.
You'll have
to watch it. It is a beautiful movie. So watch it on the big screen. I love the Technicolor in that. It was just gorgeous. So I watched The Wiz with Diana's Cross and Michael Jackson.
Diana Ross and Michael
Diana
Jackson.
Ross. Yeah. I see what he's saying. Yep, Diana Ross
Michael Jackson
played Dorothy, and Michael Jackson was the Scarecrow. I never cared for The Wiz. It just didn't do it for me. It's
it wasn't my thing either.
It wasn't my thing. I didn't like the style of music. It just wasn't my thing. Not a racial thing, folks. So
it was well produced and all that. From a theatrical standpoint, I liked it, but it just wasn't my thing.
Well, theatrically, it was beautiful. So, what are you saying? To Sarah Yusuf? Was that a sarcastic? Ryan Gale, I was a flying monkey in a community Wizard of Oz play. Cool. Ryan Gale is famous. Well, I once played a monkey on stage in the third or fourth grade. And I remember wearing a green T-shirt and shorts, and they put a paper headpiece on me that tied, and it had big ears drawn on it. And I was
it was a huge project for me when I was in college.
A monkey?
It was my last, Wizard of Oz was the last musical I worked on with our theater company in college. And it was the whole first part of it was all monochromatic. And then we had these set pieces that could peel back and reveal full color sets. And it was just nice. It was amazing. Yeah. So I was property master for the department. So I had a lot of stuff to deal with that. But also happened to be that semester I was taking children's theater, lighting, and costume design. And the costume design class designed costumes for that show. Lighting
Guess
designed
what?
the lighting for that show.
Yeah.
Children's theater did all the promotional and stuff like that, and was like, holy crap. So it sucked up my whole life for that semester.
Nice. I read a wonderful book, which has been made since into a Broadway musical. But I read the book Wicked, and that was, I think that came out about the time Abby and Bryn, my oldest kids, that they were home 13 or 14 years old. I think that's about the time the book came out. And
Based on The Witch.
based on the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yes.
And this is one of those things where they took a modern mythology and they expanded on that modern mythology and wrote more
Told it
about
from a different perspective.
totally different perspective.
Yeah.
Because we grew up as kids with the storybook Frank L. Baum, which, by the way, Baum's books are very different than the movie.
Yeah.
We got Sarah Yusuf coming in. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey guys.
So you read Frank L. Baum's books, The Wizard of Oz, and all his the series of books he wrote on them. Didn't they say something like he was, we always get these pictures afterwards, like we hear of Hans Christian Andersen that he hated children. That's why he wrote books. There was something about Frank Baum too. He was either a drug addict or something in his day. I don't know what it was, but they all dressed better, so you never knew the difference. With the high collars and but the book Wicked. If you've never read that book, I read that to Abby and Bryn and Sam when they were younger. We'd have a reading time every evening, which just fell to the wayside with my three new kids over the years here. They just want to do other things. But with Abby and Bryn and Sam, we had
You know what it is? I can tell you exactly what it is.
What is it?
The first three kids did not own devices.
I was gonna make mention of that. I was gonna say, but then again, my older children did not have devices. They didn't have cell phones because you're talking about they're growing up 16, 17 years ago. And when was I reading those books to them? Rainey was around, just starting to be around. So
early 90s.
17 years ago.
Hell, most of us didn't have cell phones yet because they were so damn expensive.
I know. I had a cell phone. I didn't have a BlackBerry. I had something like that, though. And
I used to jokingly say, I have a Palm 5, and I would write notes on my palm.
There it is. Palm. That's what I had. I had a Palm. That was actually the name of the phone, a Palm. And but we were reading that book, and it gave you a totally different look. It took the Wicked Witch of the West and it turned it around the other way, and it followed her from her birth and who she was, the kind of person she was. And it's, of course, all fictional, but why did she become this thing of evil in the modern stories that we read? More modern. It's not even modern. Skip that. I'm thinking of the movie. The movies, when we watch it, based on Frank Baum's books. So they were digging, this author was creating a whole different backstory for this fictional character. And she started off as she was a little kid. She went to a university when she got older, and she was an activist for
Hogwarts. Did she go to Hogwarts?
Hogwarts, not Hogwarts. But she was an activist for animal rights. And in the book, there were animals, small a, and animals, large a. The animals with the large A, as she wrote, as this book was written, they were animals that had intellect and they could speak language.
Flying monkeys.
Just like we
Flying
could.
monkeys having.
And the small A animals were, animals that didn't have that ability. And so there was some big movement by the wizard and all of his cronies around him that were trying to do away with the large A animals.
But that's the horse
government, get them out of the yellow brick road out in the outskirts where she was born, the Wicked Witch of the West. had fallen into disrepair. It was a big municipal project. It was supposed to be tying together all the realms of the Empire of Oz, and it was a broken down, patch-holed brick road falling into disrepair and crumbling way out in the west in the outskirts. And so it's a very interesting story when you get into it. And it's what the things that happened in this young woman's life that turned her into the quintessential evil that you see in Frank Baum's books and in the movie, such as the movie is. It's a whimsical kids musical now. But I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too. That's it exactly.
Yeah.
How about a little fire, Scarecrow? So, yeah, David Castle, very astute. The Wizard of Oz helps introduce you to your hero's journey. That's exactly what it is. It's modern day mythology. So, yeah, I love that for that reason.
With Chick as a hero, which is like totally modern, man. Nobody was doing that.
Nobody was doing that. Yeah, you're right. I loved the Scarecrow character, Ray Bolger, an incredible actor, incredible dancer in the old movies. He lived a pretty long life, too. I think he outlived them all, didn't he? Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow in the movie, I think some of his latest roles, he was in roles like he was on The Love Boat in the 70s. A couple of episodes of that. He was in...
Do you know who was supposed to play the Scarecrow?
I know who was supposed to play the Tin Man. Who was supposed to play the Scarecrow?
He was... Buddy Epson was supposed to...
That was the Tin Man. He was supposed to play the Tin Man. As a matter of fact, they started filming with him.
No, he was originally cast as the Scarecrow, and the guy who was in the Tin Man suit couldn't wear the suit. So they switched places, and then...
He had a bad reaction to the silver makeup.
Yeah.
And he got dropped for, can't think of his name now. Hal, I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But somebody will look it up. And but Ray Bolger was a quite limber dancer.
Yep.
I did a thing in 5th grade where it wasn't the play, but I did his song from the movie, and dressed all up and did the little dance and won 2nd place in the talent show.
Picture this if you can. When we were doing...
Wow, that's amazing, Scott. Before I jump into my tributary off the topic,
I'm saving you from that.
All right.
Smart.
So what now?
Picture this if you can. Children.
Oh, Sarah hasn't even said anything yet.
When we did Wizard of Oz, okay, I had a big red full afro and a big red full beard, much like Sam's.
Okay.
Wow. I went out for the lion part.
Oh, you were the lion.
Didn't get it. They gave it to another actor because theoretically I was too busy on production crew. So I was, because I was inadvertently in every department for production crew that year. But
nice.
But
how long are you going to stay fresh in that can?
Yeah.
That was another one. To the Tin Man.
Yeah.
He's trying to intimidate them all.
Put him up. Put him up.
Put him up. Put him up.
Yeah. Anyway, Sarah, how are you tonight?
Me, eh? Sneaking up on me, eh? Ruff. Ruff. What a great character actor he was.
Yeah. What have you been up to, Sarah?
What's on your mind tonight, Sarah?
No, I was just thinking about, I really, like everybody was saying, tonight's show is really interesting in the way you're putting it together. Just looking at, the nature of supposed to be Celtic culture, but the nature of stories and what influence they have in their own culture and how they may, interact with other cultures. Like when we were talking about earlier about Julius Caesar, he was making connections to, Roman culture, to what the Gauls had, with the Gauls
Yeah.
had. They worship Mercury. They worship,
Yeah.
he was, and then you were talking about syncretism. And I think that, because of that type of syncretism, that most of these cultures kind of endured, rather than being completely oppressed out. Most of the back in the day, and like we were saying, monotheism is pretty new. So I mean, everybody had their own sort of pantheon of gods and this and that,
Right.
with their own, and the tropes and like the concepts of what these gods represent are, it's always, similar. Like you have a god of technology, god of the sky, god of,
Yeah.
every which way. It's like the same group of major concepts that that are trying to be explained through stories.
Well,
Right.
my belief on that
Mhm.
has always been that ancient man looked around their village and thought, this guy over here is one of our hunters. This woman over here is one of our gatherers. This person over here weaves clothing and whatever. There's all these different people in the village had taken on specific tasks to help everyone. Okay. So clearly, with all the things that needed to be done, all those stars have to be put out, all those blades of grass have to be put out, all these animals have to be taken care of. Clearly, it's too much work for one person. So there must be many gods, each god with a task to do things for us mortals and for the gods to exist. And so the concept of a monotheistic thing just didn't make sense to them, because you couldn't survive alone back then and do everything, without the help of others.
Right.
So it a logical path for them to go to create a multi-theistic system.
Yeah. Polytheistic. Yeah.
Polytheistic. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Poly, multi, who's counting? So,
But I mean, the stories,
It's all plastic.
They all, they just, show us how we live. They can be, not just in showing what was done in the past or what culture is, but, you also have cautionary tales. Look at, even in, book culture, you look at the Divine Comedy. It's supposed to be a cautionary tale for in the Inferno, it's
agreed.
this, or you'll end up in, of hell, or, the stories have a way of, helping us survive and drive and live. I mean, as far as,
that's our whole culture is made up of stories.
right.
Even if you get into politics or banking or something, there's always tales to be told.
Yep.
And so everything is a story. Everything's a tale.
I mean, or the oral fixation. We're talking about our oral fixation. That's our primary means of communication with each other, the easiest way.
Right.
So, as far as, going up behind somebody and, snapping them on the back of the head,
Right.
That's a different type of communication. But I mean, being able to speak to and have a shared common language, or, like we're able to talk about, whatever under the sun.
Yes. And everybody wants to hear a good story. Some people go, I don't like to listen to stories, but everything we do, this radio show is a story that's being told. You go to church, whether you believe it's true or not, it's a story being presented. People who listen to comedians, they're listening to funny stories. We all listen to stories out there, and we all want to hear a good one. And there are some people that I listen to tell stories, and you're like, oh, what? And they lose you because they don't know how to present a story. Story might be good, but their presentation is faulty. There are some people I could listen to them tell a story, and you're riveted to it because they know how to pull you in. They know the emotions to tap. They know the tone of voice to use.
I mean, it's certainly
not to be like Joe Biden.
Yoda, not a good storyteller. He always gives away the ending first. It's like,
Yeah,
dude,
really.
dude,
You will.
die you will by your father's hand. Now let me tell you this.
What?
What?
Oh, wait, what? What was that first
You
part?
come with a spoiler alert or a disclaimer.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Star Wars, folks, what is Star Wars? It's a retelling of mythology.
Fables, yeah.
Yeah.
So long before the Bible, you had Aesop's fables out there teaching you morality
Yeah.
through stories.
Yep.
Life lessons that were important. I once had an
Oh!
atheist tell me that without the Bible there would be no morals, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Aesop's fable is all about morals, and it precedes the Bible.
You mentioned Aesop's fables. It reminded me when I played the monkey in 3rd or 4th grade on stage. I was the monkey. What was I the monkey that was observing the thorn being pulled out of the lion's paw? What was that Aesop's fable? With
Mouse and the lion.
Was it a mouse that pulled out
a mouse and a lion.
The mouse and the lion. And I was a monkey that was observing it in the jungle.
Aesop's Fables was one of my first scholastic books that I bought when I was in like kindergarten or 1st grade.
Yeah.
David Castle, how you doing out there? Yo ho ho. Barbie D never got into Star Wars.
I didn't either. I'm a Trekkie.
So. Okay, what? I never saw E.T. There you go.
Oh, phone home.
So I'm sure that Spielberg has people out looking for me in an effort to force me to see it. But
oh yeah,
how can there be one
great
left?
scene in E.T. where they're hiding E.T. and they've got a sheet thrown over him or had him made up. It's Halloween night. They're going trick or treating, and some kid in a Yoda costume walks by him on the street and he goes, "Oh!" And it's just a little snippet like that. It just Spielberg promoting Star Wars there.
Yeah.
So
maybe you could just make up for it, but just by watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and that'll
that was a good movie.
Lucas returned the favor in the episode 1 where they had the Senate scene.
Yeah.
One of the Senate things you had with the ETs from ET Phones Home.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
in there, part of the Senate.
Did I just hear about that?
He's gone.
I have a vague memory of seeing something like that and point. Oh, that's ET.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, right. I mean, going back to George Lucas, he was. I mean, he even stated that he was really influenced by Hero of a Thousand Faces with Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean that in the whole archetype of building a story and having all the elements part of it, that was really really adopted with Star Wars. A little bit less so in the last 3, but
yeah, well, Campbell wasn't involved in that in any way.
Yeah, I mean he's dead, so
no, I understand that, but I'm just saying Lucas actually read the book for the first ones and was actually involved in thinking along that process. Campbell was not a thought in those other movies. Yeah, he was not there at all.
Oh, the secondary movies? No.
Yeah.
The second
he wasn't.
trilogy.
It was just entertainment value after that.
Well, he let other people come in and he gave them the bones of what he wanted to see for a story and let other people fill in the flesh, and it was
right. Right. Look who's here.
Hey.
I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Professor Bauer.
Thanks for letting me in. I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm great.
Yeah.
Good to see you. What's on your mind?
Oh my God! Well, we will.
You don't want to ask that question.
The rest of us might as well mute now for the next 3 hours.
He's got some time to make up for.
No, I just wanted to pop in and say yes, I'm still here. I'm alive, and
I'm glad you are.
How's life treating you?
Exceptionally well. I've been buried in a project, and
I figured
finally just got it launched, and in the middle of actually finishing up some more work for it tonight. So it's been very busy.
Anything
hint
you
at what
can
it
tell
is
us
without
about
the
it?
government killing us?
Well, there's actually been some conversations about some of the things that I haven't put up yet that could cause some angst amongst those that, would get, wound up about. But what I've done, I just
Doesn't
created
involve the moo, does it?
No, he
no,
probably means me.
no, what I've done is I've been writing scripts and music and doing voiceover for a new project that I just launched called
Nice.
Mind Treks. So it's
Nice.
up on YouTube, and it's a set of
that out.
meditations, music, quotes, and contemplations.
Wow.
So the idea or the tagline is that it's Mind Treks, journeys through the thought streams of the mind. And I use meditations, music, quotes, and contemplations as vehicles for journeys through those thought streams, and to give you different landscapes with which to think about. So that's what I've been working on. I just launched
Mind Tricks, TRICK.
Provocative you are.
No,
Trek, like
Mind
in Star Trek.
Treks.
Okay, Google just wanted to correct me. Do you mean Mind Tricks, Journey Through the Thought Stream?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that came up when I was creating this thing. It was originally going to be the MetaMind, where I was going to start exploring more of informatica and the language being the operating system of your mind, which I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm putting together to explore that, because I think I've mentioned it on some of the previous conversations we've had, and it kind of ties into the subject you guys have been talking about at this point, in the idea of mythology and stories, and the ways in which words have been assembled into sentences, and the way they've been put together and wrapped around different stories and different concepts that elude all kinds of different subject matter, whether it's emotional or intellectual, scientific, theological, philosophical. So I've been wanting to do this for a while. So I decided that it was time to go ahead and start putting the effort together. So there's a Facebook page called Mind Treks. There's a YouTube channel, Mind Treks.
I just went and subscribed to your YouTube channel while you were talking.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Here, I'm going to put up why don't I just put up a link for people?
Do the like, share, subscribe, the thing.
The thing, yeah. Let's see here. There you are, Mind Treks. I'm going to grab your link over in YouTube, and folks, go take a look at this. Here is Professor Bauer's page. Boom, it comes up as a lot of code garbled, but there it is. You could probably just go to youtube.com/mindtreks. I would bet you.
It should show up. Yeah. It's only been live for a couple of weeks, and I've been adding content and working through the algorithms and doing all the things that the way that the system works wants you to do it, so that you can get as broad a reach as possible. So
what's your website? Mindtreks.com?
It'll be mindtreks.net, and it is not up yet. It is not up yet.
Oh, okay.
The Facebook page is up. You can go to Facebook.
Mindtreks' website forbidden.
Yes. And I expect to get some of that, especially when I start getting into the whole concept of, the fact that, and I think I mentioned this last time I was on a month or so ago, in that I think what we're going through, we've been hearing about this whole wealth transfer, the biggest wealth transfer in
just talking about that the other day,
right? And we have been going through that, but I think really what we're about to see is a knowledge transfer, and we're starting to see little pieces of that here and there as information comes out. Because the one thing that happens is, as I've said a few times to you, Scotty, we are one turn of the spade for new information that could change everything.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Tends to snowball quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that we're seeing the inklings of it. You've seen conspiracy theorists turned to analysts, and now they are spoiler alerts.
Yeah. Conspiracy theories are spoiler alerts.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, at least I know that the majority of the different things that have been put into that category have all come true. We're seeing it in spades with all of this stuff that's happened over the last 2 to 3 years across a number of different knowledge domains that are very important and extremely impactful to the civilization, to the planet, to the societal fabric that we all wear in order to, function in the world that we have. But we're seeing the heightened intensity of literally every emotional, psychological tool that can be used to drive a very intense and concerted state of angst. And the anxiety that is wrapped around all of these different memes in the narrative to create that are coming from literally everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're talking about your personal life and your family and your children, to your local life in the states, to the national, to the global. I mean, even
Armageddon.
Continental
Armageddon's coming.
Yeah,
our president just told us.
Yeah, and that's just another one of the things that have been tossed into the soup to try to make it less tasteful. Which, I mean, it's been less tasteful since it started several decades ago, when the whole idea of what to think replaced how to think, and that's one of the reasons that's one of the reasons that I am pursuing this Mind Tracks is people need to rethink the way they think and how they think and why they think. And once you go back to those fundamental components of our consciousness and our reality, then it's a lot easier to see all the crap that's being thrown at you.
Yeah.
Truer words have never been spoken.
So that's, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say that I think it's interesting that, you're telling people, you're trying to help people to think differently, but you're doing it like in a form of guided meditation, which is its own type of story. You're editing and re-editing and, with stories again, the whole overall overreaching concept, people look at memes, they get scared. That's a type of story. The way we communicate, it's all stories, and how we try to change ourselves and navigate this world and everything. It's all story dependent. So.
Yeah, and the stories that you hear and the way that you respond to them are based on the framework that you have of your reality and the filters that you have in that framework. So a framework would be the way that you consider a belief system, or you consider a science, or any type of knowledge domain that you resonate with. And that's why people's curiosity gets kicked off and they start exploring their field of awareness and their imagination, is because of curiosity. And curiosity comes from when you stop and you go, huh? And it could be that could be for any reason. It can be for something very positive and something that you are attracted to something that you are very repelled by, that you feel is not right. And there's a whole bunch of that going on right now. I think there's more and hold on a second and explain that to me one more time, to the point where you're getting to the most important part of the exploration of trying to understand what it is that you're experiencing, and that is the questions you ask.
There's a whole hell of a lot of wait, what?
and maybe just a little too much of here, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, hold my beer is something that actually I'm doing now. I haven't had any alcohol for a couple of months.
Wow.
And I got done with this phase.
You must be busy
getting the project up, and I said, I think I need a beer. So, but my point is the really important thing is the questions that you ask. And to Sarah, to your point about, approaching it from a meditation, or what I'm calling mindtations, which is a different twist, but the same concept of traditional meditation.
I love your plays on words.
Trademark pending. So
Yeah, but the idea is that, you know, I've been a consumer of meditation and different intellectual, mental, and spiritual pursuits for decades. And in that pursuit, I've consumed a boatload of different techniques and different ways and different productions of the way people have done things to try to help people get into a different state of mind. The state of mind is what's going to determine pretty much everything that's going to happen to you. So it's really important to understand how those states come about, what they are, and that is where the questions are. How do these things work? How does meditation, how do words and sentences and ideas impact the way that you think and the way that you feel? To your point, you were saying earlier, Scotty, I mean, you're a storyteller, and the people who can really tell stories well know how to take the words and put the emotive content and the intent of telling the story, of being there. And that's what makes words and sentences and things so powerful. The different mythologies, religions, and belief systems that have come and gone for, you know, millennia all had a common component, which was that the words that the leaders of the messiahs, the people that people looked up to, the way that they spoke those words and put them together is what captivated and drew people in. And each one of those all had their own moment of time and place. They had a language, they had a culture, they had a history, they had all this context that was wrapped into and around the words that they used to communicate the stories they told.
Yes.
So the words, what I'm doing with my meditations or mindtations is taking just the fundamentals of the way that you think about and what you do going into meditation, sans any kind of philosophy, psychology, theology, any of that. It's just, this is what happens fundamentally when you go into a meditation. And how do you get into that meditation? So everything that I'm doing is neutral from that perspective as it relates to the meditations and the mindtations, but I'm also using quotes and contemplations. So Socrates, Plato, Jung, Freud, Sun Tzu, Lao Tzu, pioneers. I mean, there's these Twain. There's these ideas that they came up with, or that they used in a way to express their thoughts and their ideas about something. And I think that those are extremely important. You spent a lot of time going over Aurelius. He's actually on my list and will be one of the next ones I put up on the quotes and contemplations playlist. So what I did on the channel is I said, okay, here's meditation playlists. I've got a whole bunch of shorts up there. Here's the music playlist. So it's just music that I composed and put out there for going into a space. And a lot of them, in fact, there's a sequence of the way that I've laid out the meditation.
Right, yeah, that was really good. The music was really good. I listened to that.
I haven't heard any of it yet, so I'm looking.
Well, I haven't really told her. Sarah found out about it early on, and so I kept her up to date, and she was able to go check some of it out while I was getting it all up there.
She was your beta tester.
It was like, yeah, let's see, this will be a good test.
Very close-lipped. She didn't tell us a single thing.
But the idea is that there's breath, there's body, and there's mind.
Do you have one for astral projection?
Not yet, but it's coming.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm diving in deep to astral projection.
So the idea is that you start with your breath. Once you control your breath and you have a sequenced rhythmic approach to the way that you breathe, your body will relax. And then so there's 5 minutes of breath, there's 5 minutes of body, which you now take, if you do them in sequence, you now take the frequency that you've changed with breathing, and you can now focus on the energy within the body itself, and you can take it to another level. Once you've got your mind and your body, or your breathing and your body into that frequency, you can now go into your mind and you can go explore imagination. because once your breath and your body are in a nice, relaxed frequency and state, your mind becomes open. You can quiet the mind. You can guide the mind. You can really go and explore the questions that I was mentioning earlier about what you should be asking about the reality you experience. When you look at that reality in frameworks, I've got a frame for family, I got a frame for country, I got a frame for theology, I've got a frame for just me being who I am, and you reevaluate those, you then are able to really get a clue of who you are and all of the other stuff that's going on around that you need to filter out. You need to be able to say, that's something that I want to add into my existence. That's not. And there's all the nuances and gray zones amongst all of those, and they can change instantaneously depending on the answers you've gotten from the questions you've asked.
I think you might need to check the YouTube site, because I don't think it was in that order for breath and body and mind. Because I mean, I did it out of order then, but I mean, I did look at it. look what it was on was there. But I mean, personally, I have a hard time meditating. I've been trying to do it for years and years.
I do too.
And even now, I don't know. I just find myself just being resistant to it. I don't know what it is, but I mean, I as far as for people who are just starting out in meditations, it's good because it's very basic, simple, simple level of visualizations you're trying to invoke and all that. But in terms of, I mean, for me, I mean, I still have to work on myself, but I think that you probably need to maybe do another one to slow it down for people who are just starting out, rather than try to walk before you can run.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is this would not be good for me to listen to on my long commutes.
It's 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, unless your commute's
Well, I commute for a couple hours, but what I'm saying is, am I going to go into a deep trance and not be able to drive?
No.
Yeah, it's definitely not recommended to listen to while you're operating heavy machinery. No. Okay. It's not.
I don't think
the
so.
Quotes, the quotes you could do.
Okay.
Because I've got 12 or 15 of them up there, and they're in a playlist where you can just each one. They vary. They're anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes each. So I'm trying to keep the content consumable and shortest format.
Right.
On the meditation.
For 2 hours and re-listen.
Yeah, some of the stuff that I listen to regularly that I absolutely love is 8 to 12 hours worth of content, and those get into the frequency realms and some of the ones that have when I put them on, sometimes they're buffering so much. 12 hours is a lot of content.
Yeah,
and they'll pause all of a sudden. I'm like, ugh. And I can listen to maybe 3 or 4 hours of a frequency or a sound bath and binaural beats. Doesn't matter, what the way that it's been put together is. But I typically will put one on and then listen to a lecture. Listen to somebody talk about quantum physics or, the consciousness or something. And it's a nice mix. But what I'm trying to do is make it bite-sized and very easy so that people can really stop and start to rethink what they know, because this knowledge transfer that's surpassing this wealth transfer is one of the most profound times in human history. I think, back in the ancient builder civilizations, which include at least the Atlantean groups, but there's, I think, several others. There was apparently a level of knowledge and understanding about these types of things that were more commonplace. It was more of a way in which the society functioned. But it does appear that it shows that regardless of how centered and resonant we can be, we can still fuck things up.
I'm quite resonant, but I'm very good at fucking things up.
I have a PhD in fucking it up.
I can attest to that.
Because he's done it so much, he recognizes it.
Yeah.
So,
I
well,
know the
guys,
sound.
I hate to say this, I'm going to call it a show tonight a little early because I need to. Kind of like I said, going into the captain's cabin, it's going to be a little shorter one tonight.
Well, I appreciate you letting me come in and do a big plug.
Well, let's do it
I don't
again.
remember that part.
Let's have you talk about it some more. And a couple of people I didn't get to. I saw Pearson was out there, and Matthew Sainsbury. Sorry I didn't get you guys into the show tonight, but that's okay. Another time. And Dave he must be mad. He huffed off. And hey, Travis Schaefer. Good to see you out there in the chat room. We're just wrapping up for tonight. So, Professor Bauer,
Yes.
as always, thank you. I've missed you being here. And I haven't quite gotten to the point where I was going to write you and go, what gives? Because I knew something had to be up. And so it's good to have you back. I'm going to go listen to your websites. I'm sorry, not your websites. See, that's the way my brain is working right now. I'm done for the day.
I can appreciate that. I've been done myself, but again, thank you for letting me come on and
absolutely
and share that
time any day. So, I'm going to let you go.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Sayonara,
good night,
brother.
everybody.
Thanks. And Sarah?
Yeah. Before you go,
yes.
Are you going to be focusing on the pantheon tomorrow, or which aspect of Celtic mythology are you going to be doing?
Still giving a little bit of the history of it, and then going to start going into kind of breaking them down one by one. I haven't quite decided yet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's the surprise.
Right.
I'll surprise myself along at the same time as surprising you.
Yeah,
so.
it'll be 9:59 before.
I'll know a little bit of something before I should know before showtime. But now we're going to talk about. I want to get into the history of the Celts a little bit because I am talking not so much mythology in general, but I want to really start getting more myopic and focusing on Celtic mythology and then how it relates to other mythologies. So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to talk about, we talked about the Tuatha De Danann last week.
Okay.
And I might recap them a bit. I'm going to get into probably a whole section talking about the gods and the goddesses of the Celtic pantheon. So that's kind of the rough outline for where we're going with this. So, and the importance of mythology overall. So, as viewed through the prism of Celtic mythology.
Right.
So,
okay.
All right. There we go.
Okay.
Well, you have a good night, Sarah. Good to see you. As always, see you tomorrow night.
Yeah.
All right, folks. And that's pretty much it. That's about all we got for tonight. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for you giving me your time and spending it in here. It means a lot to me. So on that note, we're going to get out of here. And you know what? Live long and prosper.